A third of women and men in North Carolina will experience some form of domestic violence in their lifetime. The pandemic made it even more difficult for victims, leaving many isolated at home with their abuser.
And now, as they seek help, there are fewer resources available for them. CBS 17's Judith Retana is digging deeper tonight into how government inaction is now hurting their healing.
This is kind of our life raft. We really need this.
The Orange County Rape Crisis Center is where survivors of rape and domestic violence come to find support. Support as simple as someone believing them.
As a survivor, you typically already feel alone, or you can feel alone and isolated.
It's where Rose Brown found what she needed after surviving a rape.
When you experience sexual assault or violence really of any kind, it's not just that you experience it for, those 5 or however many minutes, but essentially you're going to be healing long term.
But some of the programs that helped her heal are at risk after massive funding cuts.
This was a way for us to cut expenses, was to move to a smaller venue.
Executive Director Rachel Valentine shows me around the Orange County Rape Crisis Center's new facility. They had to downsize their center, their staff, and their therapy program. All of this a result of a 35% drop in funding to North Carolina domestic violence centers.
How critical is a resource like this to have in the community?
I think that it's absolutely critical for survivors to know that there is a non-judgmental space that they can go to seek refuge.
More than 70% of their money comes from the Victims of Crime Act, or VOCA. That pot of cash is filled by fines from federal white-collar or corporate prosecutions. Over the past few years, prosecutors changed litigation strategy so fewer dollars fill that pot.
It's really stressful to know that victim services is not necessarily a priority for our government.
It meant North Carolina's fund went from a peak of $103 million in 2018 to $34 million in 2021.
I wanted to know why federal prosecutors changed their strategy, but no one at the federal court level or at local organizations could give me an answer. For now, the damage is done.
When you can plan for it, it's something you can do, but when you can't plan for it, it's definitely had an impact.
The federal Fix VOCA Act passed this year. It widened the kinds of prosecutions that can fill that pot.
It was too late for a lot of us. There were a lot of our organizations that were hit very hard because the legislature kind of dragged their feet on making that very simple VOCA fix.
Valentine anticipates it'll take several years until enough money trickles back down. Centers like this one now leaning more heavily on community donations and fundraisers to fill a gap.
I stay up at night, worrying if I'm going to be able to, if we're going to be able to keep everything going at the level that it's going.
She says no matter what, survivors can always find refuge here.
There is and there always will be a place for you to go where you're going to be believed and where you're going to be supported.
And a place where they'll be able to heal, like Brown did.
And I feel all the more courageous, more resilient, more like a superhero.
Judith Retana, CBS 17 News.